G'day everyone and welcome to 7 Questions, a podcast that shares the stories and compelling lessons founders, investors and leaders shaping our economy. I'm your host, Wayne Gerard, founder and investor at Partner and co-founder of Create Financial. Through 7 Questions, we explore the founder journey, idea to legacy, uncovering the insights, lessons and defining moments that shaped each founder and the amazing business they're building. Whether you're a first-time founder, serial entrepreneur, investor, or someone looking for insights on entrepreneurship and what it takes to build a world-class company, these conversations are designed to inspire you, get you thinking, and hopefully you'll find some timely wisdom that propels your journey. Today, I'm joined by Gopi Sara. Gopi is the co-founder and CEO of OneMRI. OneMRI is unlocking the latent potential in MRI machines across Australia by providing whole body MRI scans, which is really a preventative or proactive health treatment. Gopi, thanks so much for being on 7 Questions. It's great to have you on the pod.
Hey, Wayne. Thanks for having me.
Before we start, let's help people get to know you. Who are you? What experiences and moments shaped your founder journey?
Yeah, so my name is Gopi Sara. I'm one of the co-founders of OneMRI, and I'm also the CEO. My other co-founders are Vu and Andrew. Look, so many things over the last sort of 36 years have sort of shaped my journey, to becoming a founder. I came to Australia as a refugee. We grew up extremely poor. We were refugees here for a very long time, almost 10 years. My dad got stuck overseas, so I was separated from my dad for almost 10 years as well. That kind of drove me to always sort of make the most of the opportunity, push the envelope. I studied engineering because it was one of the ways to become Australian. After becoming Australian, I quit engineering. I always wanted to do something in business. I ended up at McKinsey. Other things along the way as well. My parents rented their whole life, never owned a place. My sister and I bought mum and dad a house when we were 21. When you're 21 and you get, like a $700,000 debt, that also drives you in different ways. You start doing things just to pay down the debt to be free again. Then, while I was at McKinsey, I got a lot of exposure to startups. I, used my bonus every year to invest in a bunch of startups. That resulted me into sort of having a portfolio, meeting a bunch of people. I started a software selling company, reselling some of those US companies back into Australia. And then just the people that I met along the journey resulted in sort of me getting to where I am today, and always wanted to be a founder, had many goes at it, but it was just sometimes you just got to wait for the right time and the right opportunity and the right people.
Gopi, what an inspiring story. Wow, you have packed a lot into 36 years, mate.
Thanks. Yeah. And sometimes not by choice. So sometimes you got to be fortunate with the events that are dealt your way and how you just, use them as an opportunity to learn and grow.
One of the most important traits of a founder is resilience. And it's clear that you've had, a fair few opportunities to build that in your life. And when I think about, the best founders I've met, the founder journey is often built off a base of necessity that, ingrained desire to must win, right? You've got no choice.
Yeah.
You've got to win. And I think that differentiates founders who maybe don't have that have to win kind of background.
Yeah.
So yeah, quite interesting.
And I think it's very interesting, right? I think it can play out two ways. When you have the situation and the upbringing that I had, it wasn't by choice, right? So you're kind of thrust into it. Sometimes it's survivalist, right? So you're trying to survive and you're trying to do whatever you can. And then you come into a world where after working at McKinsey in 2017, my sister and I paid off mum and dad's house. And for the first time, I think I was maybe 27 at the time. I was free for the first time. I could choose whatever I wanted to do. The amount of stress and anxiety I had the day we paid off the house was insane, because all of a sudden, you have this Maslow hierarchy of need. You can put food on the table. You can go, you can put clothes on your back. You've got a roof over your head. You actually have money to do whatever you want to do. And you're going, what do I want to do with my life? And you're trying to search for purpose and meaning. And I think that's where, I do believe that's where you build real resilience, where, you're creating the life that you want to create, and it's going to come with sacrifices, and it's, you could go play golf or you could kind of build a company, and you're trading between really some tough decisions. And I think just over the last sort of like, 2017 to now, almost sort of like 8 years, those tough moments where you could call it quits, but you're in there for a reason, and finding your reason it's just like the game changer, that I think.
Gopi, what a perfect segue into 7 questions. So, number one, the first question to help people get to know you and OneMRI is, what inspired you to start the company? What problem are you guys solving, and how are you solving? What's your product?
Let me give you the backstory of how the company was founded. I think it sort of talks to a lot of my values and sort of who I am as an individual. So, what inspired me to start OneMRI is people. So I had this software selling company, Solve Consulting. What we did was I invested in a lot of startups that were American based, and I was trying to resell their licenses into Australia. One of the licenses we had was OfferFit, and OfferFit was doing quite well. We kicked off the business in 2020. Fast forward to sort of 2024, OfferFit was getting acquired. We went kind of going through this journey where we realized that the acquisition was going to happen. I, went from the age of 16 to, at the time, I think I was like 20, I was like 33, 34. I've been working 80 hours a week, with no holidays, no breaks, etc. And I came to this point where when OfferFit was getting acquired, I was like, this is my moment to sort of like take a step back, take a lot of time off. I signed up to a local golf club that was, a very prestigious golf club. I hired a golf coach, and I was pretty much ready to take time out for many years. And I remember I was just at home sitting with a friend chatting about all these different things that I'm going to be doing in terms of travel, etc. And Vu messaged me at that time, and he said, hey, how I've been telling you about this whole body MRI idea? Andrew and I are like really serious about doubling down on it, and even doubling down on the healthcare space. And we would love, bring you on as our third co-founder, as a CEO co-founder. And he messaged me saying, are you ready to be a CEO ? And I responded back saying, yes, always ready. But mentally I was out. I was like, pretty burnt out from of all the years of the work, etc. And then Vu came over that night, and in my head, I was like, hey, I'm probably going to tell him this is probably not for me. But it was like a Thursday night after he just does his GP. He came over at 9 p.m. He left at 2, 3 a.m. I learned more in those 5 hours than I did at 8 years of McKinsey. It was just the situation of 1 + 1 = 3. He was throwing a bunch of ideas up, and I was, adding on with my experience. And all of a sudden, laptop came out. We built out a financial model. Then we caught up with Andrew a couple of days ago, and it was very similar. It was all of a sudden, it was 3 + 3 = 9, and it was this thing that I realized, if I don't do this, I will regret it. And 18 months later, it's very much so. I think it's it's really the people and the journey with the people that makes many things exciting. And the problem space is really interesting as well, which is consumers are becoming more and more interested about their health. How do you give them access to data and insight so that they can make informed decisions? Radiology was a bit locked out, people using pathology and a whole bunch of other testing, but radiology wasn't being leveraged in the whole preventative care movement. Whole body MRIs were popular in the US. And so we're like, how can we make a national network of whole body MRI providers? And it was just a basic idea with an 18-month plan. We hit all of our goals in the space of 4 to 5 months. And it went from a lifestyle business to, a venture-backed business. And it all grew organically, even to today, where the business is heading. It's getting bigger and bigger in terms of ambition and where it's going. But it's sort of the inspiration was just hanging out with people, just who do you want to spend the most time with is people, and then you start building businesses with them.
Gopi, I love it. Maybe just a little bit more background so people know who Vu and Andrew are, just so they've got some context.
Yeah. So Vu and Andrew were two of the co-founders of Go One. I was fortunate enough to meet Vu and Andrew probably like, I think 2017, 2018. An from 1013 introduced Andrew to me, and we had a couple of chats around various things. Vu and I met at startup events, and then we both play poker. So we kind of saw each other around poker tables in Brisbane and stuff like that. And yeah,
Mate, what a great set of co-founders to collaborate with, to work with. It's always great when you can bounce off each other, eh?
that's right. And like we're all in similar stages in life with kids and stuff like that, where we are, what we're trying to achieve, where we're trying to go. So it's quickly, morphed from sort of like acquaintances over sort of like a 7-8 year period to, yeah, super close friends in 18 months.
So OneMRI is really a company that provides whole body MRI, leveraging the existing network of MRI machines.
That's right. And that was the original vision was there was a big demand for whole body MRIs. There weren't many providers in Australia. How do we build a business that leverages existing MRI machines that are massively underutilized? So there's about 450 MRI machines in Australia. 150 of them are utilized 20% of the time. How do we create a service leveraging that, leveraging radiologists within our networks, doctors? And how do we build a world where someone in Sydney or Melbourne or Dubbo or Cairns or Armidale can get the exact same service of a whole body MRI versus having to travel to a major city? Because at that time, you could only get it in Sydney, basically.
So what is a whole body MRI, and why should people get it? Just so we know.
So the advantage of the whole body MRI is that in one session, in 45 minutes, you get a complete view of your body. You get a view of like 13 organs and systems from head to thigh. You get to see your brain, your neck, your spine, your abdomen. You get to understand whether there might be aneurysms, any nodules you might have to investigate, any lesions, solid tumors. It's a great way to get additional data on your body, just like you might do with the blood test and with other testing as well. It gives you a full holistic view of your body that is otherwise impossible to get.
MRI in this particular case, so getting a whole body MRI sounds like a proactive thing to do rather than a reactive thing. How does that work?
That's right. So Australians are getting more and more proactive about their health. They're doing things like blood tests. They're talking to the GPs about longevity protocols, and whole body MRI fits into that. It allows you to get another data point that you typically otherwise won't be able to get.
So getting a whole body MRI early, proactively allows you to potentially see things before they become an issue, and then work with the GP or specialist to resolve them so that you're not negatively impacted down the track.
Yeah, that's right.
Really cool, right? Who's the ideal customer for a whole body MRI, and why would someone go get it?
Yeah, so the ideal customer is someone who is being proactive about their health. They've, you know, doing different things from having a blood test to changing their diet to getting to exercise. They're thinking about their longevity, and they're thinking about, how do they ensure that the quality of life is maintained as they age. And so we get a lot of customers who come directly to us, but we also get a lot of customers through clinicians. So there's a lot of longevity providers out there who see whole body MRI as a critical part of the longevity protocol. And so what they'll do is they'll reach out to us and they'll say, hey, we have X customer who's really interested. Can you can you help them get a whole body MRI? And that could be in Dubbo, that could be in Orange, or that could be in Sydney or Brisbane. And so all around Australia, we have clinicians reaching out, asking our help to get their customers whole body MRIs.
And I guess any clinician could do that, right? Like if they're a doctor in any practice and they see a customer or a patient that wants to be proactive, this could be one of the tools in their kit bag.
That's right. And today they it's not easy to get a whole body MRI outside of one MRI. And so the way we've structured the process, the way we've aligned all the stakeholders, the way we've standardized the protocol, it just means that someone can consistently get the exact same service independent of what city they are in Australia.
So you guys built one MRI. What's your unique insight, or what was the secret sauce or different approach that you've decided to take to build this company and offer this solution to market?
Yeah. So I think the secret sauce for us was leveraging our experience in partnerships. So between Vu, Andrew, and myself, like we've got 45 years of like building relationships, building partnerships, establishing a network. And so when we started building out the company, we had a couple of parts. We can go in and build our own radiology clinics or our own MRI centers and start scanning, or build a network through partnerships. And so we had this 18-month plan that what we were going to do was every quarter go to a new city. So quarter one was go to Brisbane, Perth, Gold Coast, Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, etc. And we thought that, it will take long to build these partnerships, etc. But just because of that experience and how we kind of build partnerships and relationships, etc., we were able to hit all of those goals in sort of 4 months.
Wow.
Today, 12 months into sort of first commercial scanning, like we have 45 radiology clinics around Australia who partner with us to provide whole body MRI services. The other unique thing we did was, you know, while radiology clinics have excess capacities with MRI machines, they are overloaded when it comes to the radiologist who write the report. And so what we were able to do was decouple the radiology services, go to a clinic and say, hey, we'd love to partner with you on your machine, but don't worry about the radiologist. Like, I know you're busy with them. We'll, create our own team of radiologists. And so we created our own team of radiologists, our own team of doctors. And so we were able to sort of like build up the services through modules, and that allowed us to provide it at scale, at a national level.
Really cool. Right. Wow. It sounds like you guys have been making great progress, Gopi. What's one of the hardest decisions or biggest challenges you've had to face on the journey of building one MRI? And what's the lesson you learned?
Yeah, this one goes back to the conversation that you and I have often, and I'm very grateful for the time that you always give me to kind of chat through these challenges as they come up. And it's always been people, it's always been around hiring people and letting people go. I think it's something that really sort of like surprised me as a founder as well, which is, you find great people, you hire them, they're doing a great job, but then all of a sudden the company just takes off. It
Yeah.
grows very, very quickly. And you have this amazing person in front of you, but unfortunately, they're just not growing as quick as the company. And all of a sudden, you just have this tough decision to make saying, hey, I think you're awesome, but we've outgrown you. And typically that might happen over 2 to 3 years in a company, but in a startup that could happen in 6 to 8 months. And so one of the toughest decisions was the people we hired 18 months ago, a lot of them, the company outgrew them in the space of 12 months, and we had to completely recycle the entire team. And that was like very tough because, you know, uh, as you know, like everything I've been saying, is all about the people. And sometimes you bring on these amazing people on the journey, but you just have to make that call, and you just got to like recognize. And the company has been so much better because of the next sort of evolution of people that we've brought in who are growing as quick as the company, if not growing quicker. Yeah, but that's been one of the toughest decisions.
People always are, right? Especially if you're a person that cares about people. And it's so true. Like in my tech company, Red Eye, we outgrew people over a couple of different cycles of the business. And some of them, have become really great friends of mine.
Yeah,
And the conversations you have to have with them about, hey, you're here and it's clear that what's important to you in life at the moment, or the requirements of the role, the things are different, and
yeah.
it's good or bad. It just is a situation, and we need to resolve it so that the person is set free to do what they're you know most interested and most passionate and most capable of doing, and the business has the capacity to reinvest that capital into the right resource to get to the next level.
Yeah, and I think what helps is the rigorous interviewing process where you really think ahead and you think about where the role is going. I mean, these are obviously things we've learned along the way, and we might have made a misstep on the first few hires because, we saw some great people and we're like, oh, let's bring them in. And all of a sudden, 6 months in, we're like, oh man, like your role's completely grown and like you're kind of like not keeping up. But what we did was we went back and, created this rigorous interview process. So like our interview process is I go first. So I do the first 45-minute interview with an individual. And then what we do is we do the hiring manager interview, a technical interview. Then what we do is have a take-home exam. And then after that, there's a 45-minute sit down in person with the hiring manager to talk about culture. And we have a memo around how to succeed at OneMRI. And then off the back of that, we do reference checks and then we provide the offer. It is a pretty sort of intense process. But I think through that process, we also get comfort that like this person's going to grow to where the company's going to go. But what helps is the rigorous interview process, hiring people, and then helping them land on their feet with the next role. So reaching out to other people within the network saying, hey, this person's awesome. This is what they're really good at. Do you think that you might, have a need for such a person? And I think that's what makes it also like to be able to have a beer with that person at the end of the year because, you've done right by them, but also by the company as well. And a lot of people also intuitively feel it and know it. And so when you start having the conversation with them, they're like, yeah, I wanted to have a chat with you about this. I'm not really sure. I just think that like what the requirement is completely sort of like 3-4 years ahead of me. And I just can't kind of like step up to it. And there's like nothing wrong or right about that individual. It's not like a detriment. It's not a ding on their capability. It's just a part of sort of being in a venture-backed business.
Absolutely. One of the things we used to do in our interviewing process, which we found really helped, was the last interview was a team interview, and
Oh, wow.
we get the new person to come in and meet the team they were going to work in, or meet the
Yeah.
key stakeholders they're going to work with. And we had a very specific format, so we would run get the person to describe themselves and
Yeah.
and explain to the team what they need to be able to be successful in the role,
Yeah.
and then get the team to introduce themselves, what they do, and get the team to think about how they could help the person be successful in the role
Yeah.
and that member needs back from that person. And
Yeah.
so we got all
Yeah.
that out on the table
Yeah.
in a team interview or a group interview. It left the candidate feeling like they got to know people who they were going to work with, and they got a chance to explain what they needed to be successful. And it got the
Yeah.
team thinking about how they would help this other person be successful and what
Yeah.
they need from them in return. And so we found that the success rate and the time to person role fit really reduced
Yeah.
because the team helped them win. And so that was a pretty cool way of moving the business forward faster.
That's awesome. And I think it's also like, we talk about the negative of someone not growing as quickly as the company. We've had like a lot of amazing moments where also we've hired someone for, one person in particular, we were like 6 weeks in, not even 6 weeks in, I think we we're like 4 or 5 weeks in. And we realized that this person is capable of far more. It was growth marketer, Patrick. Patrick came in within the first couple of weeks. We already knew that Patrick was just, capable of much more. And we quickly promoted him to, head of growth marketing. And, he's been an absolute asset for the company. We've had people in the front line very similar as well, came in to do a certain role. You listen to their calls. You're like, hey, this person has a lot of potential, a lot of opportunity. Let's just like move them to the next thing. Let's create a role for them. And so that's been really good as well. I think it's like finding these amazing talents that are, just going to shape the way OneMRI is going to grow and build.
Awesome. Let's move on to question number 4, which is, if you think back to the beginning of OneMRI and all the lessons you've learned since then, what's one thing, one lesson, one attribute or trait that you as a founder wish the Gopi 2.5 years ago knew or embodied?
Yeah, look, and this is going to be a really weird thing to say. And so I should caveat it by saying that I do enjoy the role. But I think I didn't understand how tough and how, difficult the CEO role is.
Yeah.
I think it's like, I just, didn't, and like, I've been fortunate enough at McKinsey where we spend a lot of time with CEOs and, I invest in a lot of founders and you kind of talk to them. And I've seen a lot of the great ones operate. Like George from OfferFit is easily one of the best CEOs I've ever kind of come across. And, you see him carry the team to the promised land, right? Like it's all
Yep.
on him. But I think until you do the role, you just don't realize how demanding it is. Like you're at the center of the company, everything happens around you. The surface area you cover in terms of topic and content is insane. Like you need to be wide, but then also be able to go super deep on a topic. And I wouldn't change anything. I still would have done the role, but I think my expectation and approach would have been completely different. One of the things I do today is I have a no meeting Wednesday. So on Wednesdays, you can't book recurring meetings with me. You can book one-off meetings for sure, but I keep the day free to do deep thinking, sit down, ponder on one topic for the entire day. And then I start taking meetings around 2 p.m. if it's like ad hoc meetings, etc. But these are things that I would have probably done much earlier in the journey. I totally underestimated how demanding the role is.
One of the lessons I learned being a CEO is that constant juggle between the CEO has the vision, the CEO has the momentum, the CEO is all in. If you're the founder and CEO or co-founder and CEO, you've got all this drive and clarity, but at the same time, you have to build scale. So you have
Yeah.
to empower and
Yeah.
trust and facilitate and coach and mentor your team to take ownership of things. And getting that balance right is super important. And the earlier you can get it right, I think the faster the business can scale. And so
And I think
it's
it's
not
also like,
right.
yeah, and it's also like what approach you subscribe to. So I think, over the years, reading a lot of Paul Graham stuff, I subscribe to the YC approach of founder mode, which is being in the detail and being pretty hands-on. I watch a lot of, videos of the Airbnb CEO talking about how he does things. And so I think that's the other thing too, is like, depending on the role that you subscribe to, the demand is also like at another level because you're, fully across everything. In other organizations, I was talking to one of the sort of like ASX CEO, and he was talking about how, you know, what makes his job easier is that he's got a great COO. And
Yep.
so like COO kind of like does that. And, you might get these advices and then you kind of listen to them and you go, that's not me. That's not how I want to operate. And so then you kind of create your version that comes with its own sort of pros and cons. But that sort of like, if I knew what I know now 2.5 years ago, I would have started tweaking much earlier and I would have kept the feedback cycle much shorter. I think I just let the feedback cycle run a little bit too long. And then all of a sudden I was drowning. And then I was like, like panic mode hits and you're like, okay, this is not working. How do I recut it? Versus sort of like constantly tweaking and changing.
What's been a pivotal moment or a breakthrough that's changed the trajectory of one MRI?
Yeah. So this kind of like there've been a few moments already, even in the last sort of like 18 months. The moments are sort of like underpinned by this favorite motto at OneMRI. So our favorite motto is, if we're going to panic, panic early. And so, it's like this motto captures this truth, which is around, if something feels off, the worst thing you can do is wait. And so, about panicking early is all about just confronting the challenge, deciding who's going to help you support it, what are the things we can do, and giving yourself maximum time to kind of solve the problem. So we have this 20% month on month growth target that we've kind of had since day one. I think it was like in May, we were like in the middle of May and we were looking at our numbers for May and we weren't sure we were going to hit it. And then we were looking at June and it was up, it was quite dicey as well. And then July was very similar because we we're heading into like school holidays period as well. And it was one of those things where like, we just saw it really early. There was one day where we were just talking about the numbers and we were like, hey, it was like this feeling of like, I feel like we're going to panic. Let's panic now and let's kind of get on top of it. And so we did a bunch of things to solve that. But one of the breakthrough moments that now has become the culture of the company is we just started talking to a ton of people. we just, as a company, as a team, we just went through our Rolodex and we just went, who knows what, who is the best at, X, who is the best at Y, let's get a call with them, who knows who. And I think you introduced us to a couple of people as well. And we just had all these conversations. We came up with the plan to kind of attack it. And in the end, we just smashed through the target. But that was kind of like a pivotal moment where it defined the operating model of the company. It was like, if we're going to panic early. Number two is like, let's come up with experts that we can talk to who can help us cut through and we don't have to make the mistakes someone else has made. Number three is like, how do we create strategic, clear initiatives with clear deadlines? One of the things we talk about is exactly what, by exactly who, by exactly when, and being very, very clear around what we're going to do. During that period, it was like a 90-day, day by day, shortened to a controlled sort of like project management and execution. And that's become how the company operates to get through hurdles.
Some awesome lessons there for other founders, right? If you're going to panic early. I love it. It's such a simple motto or catch cry, and really can inspire clear action.
Yeah.
And then you're exactly what by exactly who by exactly when. That is also a really fantastic clarity creating framework for getting things done. Great lessons for any founder, and I think any CEO at any stage, or really any executive. Gopi, let's talk about you and how do you maintain your mindset, your health, your relationships? How do you keep some semblance of balance, and what is balance to you, while you're growing a company as fast as you're growing OneMRI?
Yeah. And I think this is something that I've always struggled with because I am very much a black and white person and I am a perfectionist. So I think it's like one of the things is just accepting who you are and how you see the world and how, you operate in the world. So one of the biggest things I had to sort of like learn in life is that not everything has to be perfect. Sometimes done is a lot better than perfect. And something simple like going to the gym. Sometimes, when I was much younger, I wouldn't go to the gym because I didn't have an hour and a half to go to. And I wasn't in the mood of like hitting it really hard and, trying to like hit my PB. Now, some days where I just go, hey, just showing up and actually just going through the program is 90% of the battle. And so, talking about this maintaining energy mindset sort of while building the company, it creeps up on you really quickly. There are moments where you are just in flow. And I'm talking about like 12 to 18 months. You don't even think about it. You're spending time with your family, you're working 70 hours a week, you're still hitting the gym and you're still getting friends and things like that. And then all of a sudden you'll get influenza and you're out for a week and it just completely messes up your routine. And then you are in this headspace. I remember I was having like these dreams and I couldn't sleep for like a week. And the dreams was me just cutting cinnamon rolls at a market. And I had this fear and I was like, what's going on? And I was like, come back to work and all of a sudden you have to pick yourself back up, the routine, etc. And I've had these moments many times in my life. And I think I found out for me, what really helps is like engaging other people. So straight away, I would book meetings with other founders that I've known who are like, well, into the journey, friends who are in high pressure, high, position jobs, operators who, are just grinding it out and having coffee with them, lunches with them, chatting with them. And all of a sudden it normalizes you. You kind of realize everyone's going through this journey and everyone has doubts and everyone's questioning, is this the best use of their time? Is the sacrifice kind of like worth it? And then you just get back into the routine. You book your meetings in, you set your time up, etc. For me, what gives me a lot of comfort a lot of times is if I just put the calendar in front of me and book everything, I'll just execute towards it. So I just book in all the gym sessions, I book in all the lunches, I book in all the team meetings, etc., the thinking time, and I roll through the week and come out the other end and I go, oh, wow, got a lot of done that this week. And yeah, sometimes it is tough balance. And I think I learned this when I did. So in 2017, when we paid off the house, I went through so much depression and anxiety that I've never experienced before. I've always had mild anxiety that motivated me to get stuff done. This was like debilitating. This was like sitting there and can't think. And one of the things I went to, when I saw a psychologist, and I was reading this book about the Vipassana retreat, and I was telling him about this thing that I wanted to do, and he said, "No, you shouldn't do it. It's too intense." And I was like, "You don't know me." I kind of went and did it, and it was this 10 days silent meditation. I meditated maybe 10 minutes my whole life before that moment. And so I went and did this 10-day retreat, and I learned a bunch of things there. And I'll just only share one thing. Was there was a day where it was like maybe 6 days in or something. They wake you up at 4 a.m. and what you do is you sit down, you meditate. I went and sat down in the hall, and I wasn't feeling it. I was like, I'll go meditate in my room. Went to my room, fell asleep. I woke up like 2 hours later, and I was pretty dirty at myself. I was saying things to myself that I wouldn't say to other people, like, "You're lazy. This is classic you, just, like not putting the work in, etc." Went and had breakfast, and then had another meditation session. Again, wasn't feeling it. Went to my room, fell asleep. Fast forward to the evening, went back to the meditation room, sat down, and this could have been 10 seconds, 10 minutes. I have no idea. But I had one of the best sessions up until that point. It really felt like I was in the zone, and I was like, really felt present. And I felt like it was just calming. And I went back to my room, and I was lying in my room, and I was like, "Gopi, you know who you are. You're a hard worker. You will grind more than 90% of society, 95% of society. If you feel like you need a break, give yourself a break. Like, it's okay. You don't have to be perfect every single day, and you don't have to grind it out every single day. There are days where you just need the time off." And I think that really changed my perspective on how I approach. We had a day where at OneMRI just a few months ago, it was a terrible day. It was like just wrong things after wrong things kept happening. And my sister works in the company. And I remember at lunchtime just calling my sister and just saying, "Hey, I think today's one of those days where we just call time, right? Like, all of these things are happening under our control. There's nothing we can fix. We're just waiting on people. Why don't you come over and let's just go somewhere? Let's just have lunch. Let's just there's just nothing we can do. Let's not push the boulder uphill, and let's tackle it again tomorrow." And yeah, I went and had lunch with her when I picked up my daughter from daycare like 2 hours early, hung out with her for the rest of the day, came back next morning, and we went hard at it. But it just completely, like, you're not forcing things to happen when it's just not going to happen. Or if, sometimes you could just make things worse. I'm a big believer in the universe kind of getting out of your way to make stuff happen. And yeah, so for me, it was always about just giving myself the permission to take a break, spending time with other people, has been getting me back on track for the last sort of 25 years.
Finding time to take a break is huge. Making time to take a break or to clear your head. One of the things that I found worked really well for my team and I was walking meetings. Get out
Yeah.
of the office, go as an exec team, walk around the river, stop at South Bank, grab a coffee, sit on the grass, and have a conversation about what's really important in the business.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
trying to tackle the business in a different way, creating a different energy and giving people an opportunity to breathe and put themselves into a condition or situation that allowed them to think differently about things. Interesting your journey on silent meditation. I did something similar, right? Like, I had a bunch of friends and they said, "Hey, we're going to go and do this course in India. Do you want to come?" And I was running a consulting business at the time.
Yeah.
And I was, exhausted and working
Yeah.
crazy. And I went, yeah, sure, I'll just come. And I just booked it, didn't even look at it. And I rock up at the airport, fly to India, get the bus from the airport to the place where the course is. And we get sat down and they go, "Oh, and today we start our 21-day silent meditation." And I go,
Oh,
"What?
wow.
Yeah. What have I
Yeah,
just
that's
signed
right.
up for?"
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
It's
was a
like, from this
phenomenal
moment, you will not talk for 21 days. And you're like, what?
hello?
Yeah.
How can I turn my
Yeah.
mind off for 21 minutes, let alone 21 days? Yeah, but it was a
Yeah.
fascinating experience, right? I learned a lot of lessons on that as well.
Yeah. There
Um,
were just like
yeah,
days where like, because mine was only 10 days. And I purposely did mine in Tassie. So I live in Brisbane, purposely did mine in Tassie so that I couldn't leave. I was just fearful that I'd jump in a car and just drive off. And I
go
remember
home.
one day, it was like day 5 or something like that. And it was in this massive property, like this massive bushland. I went for a walk
Beautiful.
for like literally 15 minutes and just screamed and then came back. Because I've never meditated in my life. And Vipassana meditation is super intense. I mean, it would have been similar to what you did. Like they go, okay, this is like the first 20 minutes, right? And we all had dinner and we're having a chat. It's all fun. And they're like, we're going to walk through this hall. The moment you cross this line, you don't speak for the next 10 days. And then you sit down. I didn't bring anything. All these people brought like pillows, these little blocks, everything. I had nothing. I've never meditated before. So I'm sitting on the floor and they go, okay, for the next 2 hours, you'll observe your breath. Thank you. And that was it. That was the instruction for the first night. And I remember just going, what? And, you know, I went to the room after that and came back next morning, and where I was sitting, a whole bunch of people donated a bunch of stuff without even talking to me or anything like that. There was like a bunch of stuff left. And you get this, this thing about humanity and how people are really there to help each other and stuff. And it's a great experience. But I remember I had this dream. This was completely a dream at the retreat. But because you don't talk for 10 days, you don't get any new input, right? All you're doing is dealing with existing stuffs in your mind, and you're making decision 1 minute, am I going to leave McKinsey or not? And the next minute you're like, no, I'm not going to leave. Then 2 minutes later, you're like, no, I'm going to leave. And you're flipping back and forth with decisions. But I had this vivid dream that we were in Brisbane, and it's a completely a dream. Brisbane, in the car, driving down with dad down Riverside Expressway. And I'm like yelling at dad. I'm like, hey, dad, your insurances are too high. You're burning your super money. Your fees that you need to swap, like all this like stuff that I always have a go at dad for. And then we get into this car crash and I get out of the car and I'm still yelling at dad, right? About his insurances and about his super and stuff like that. And then my dad looks at me and he goes, are you okay? And I remember looking down and being like, oh yeah, I'm fine. And then I look at him and he's got a broken leg and a broken arm. And then it's kind of like, even in that moment, all he cares about is me. And it was like this thing of like, oh man, like I should really give this guy a break. He's like 75 years old. He's lived his life. Yeah, sure, he's going to waste $5,000 a year on insurances, but like, who cares? Like it's his life, let him be, sort of thing. It was an amazing experience. It really changed sort of like my sort of approach to life and the things that matter for me and how I sort of make things worse, and just accepting that there are going to be good days and bad days. There are days where I'm just going to be like wanting to hide in the corner, and you let the day pass and you wake up next morning and you're motivated to go after it again.
You talked about the being aware enough to understand when you're just pushing too hard on things. It's a trait I see often in founders when you're so committed to making progress in your company, for example, closing sales. And sometimes you can push a sale to loss because you push
Yeah.
too hard on it.
Yeah.
And, I, especially in enterprise sales or even in consumer sales, but if you've really got to get, I think, in sync with the
Yeah.
environment you're working in and learn how to be aware enough to go, when have I done all I can do? And when
Yeah.
do I need to let it happen at its own pace? That
Yeah.
whole watering the tree and, giving it time to grow kind
Yeah.
of thing.
And it's so much, it's quite easy to say, but when you're in the moment and you've got targets and
Mhm.
everything means like the world is going to end if you don't hit a certain thing, or there's another milestone to kind of get. The same thing around conversations too. I think coming from the McKinsey background where everything was structured meetings, you had an agenda and you had an output, and there was no space for spontaneism. And
Yep.
I think working with Vu and Andrew has been amazing, because Vu and I, we call each other every Monday morning at 7:15 when we're both driving somewhere. He's driving down the coast and I'm driving to the office. No agenda, nothing. We just free brawl, free talk for 45 minutes. And off the back of it, a bunch of stuff happens. And I think it's surrounding yourself with people like that, where you could just give them a call and say, there's something that doesn't feel right. I don't know what it is. Kind of let's chat it through. Maybe nothing comes out of it. Giving your space to give yourself a person another call, giving it a couple of weeks to work it out. I think like using time in your advantage, whether either it's to increase time, increase pressure, or to slow things down, is like a skill that I'd love to get a lot better at.
It's that, that saying of doing the same thing and expecting a different result.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
sometimes you just like, yeah, you want to, for example, close sales, but pushing on the same sale is not necessarily going to help.
no,
Maybe you could do a different thing like find a different partnership or,
yep.
develop a different opportunity or make, you know, go to an event
Change the
and
language,
find,
try a different
yeah,
value proposition. Like, yeah,
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 right. Like there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can move the business forward. Sometimes people get fixated on here are the 5 deals in my pipeline, for example, right?
yeah,
And so I've got to work these 5 deals. Well,
yeah,
maybe you don't. Maybe you need to go and build a partnership that creates 5 new deals, or you need to, coach a salesperson and unlock some value in them that allows them to go and create 5 new deals, or whatever it is. I think
yeah, yeah,
that that mindset of understanding when things are beyond your control and it's
yeah,
time to work on something else, or take your sister for lunch.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mate, 2026, it looks like it's going to be an exciting year for OneMRI. So let's look forward to maybe June. Let's look forward to December. What are some of the amazing things that OneMRI is going to be working on in 2026? And how can people get involved?
yeah. And like for one MRI, like the scope and the vision has completely sort of evolved through the work we've been doing. So when we first started, clinicians, we were giving them access to whole body MRI. As we were doing that, they were asking us for other radiology services like CTCAs, lung CTs. They're like, can you also make that as part of the products? And then as we were kind of like considering that and getting ready for that, they were like, hey, can you also give us other things like pathology and other tests, etc. So I think one MRI, the vision is to move beyond one MRI and move to a world of one health. How
Yep.
do we sort of like be the testing backbone for the preventative healthcare movement? And so a big thing about that is continuing the great work we're doing, building partnerships on the supply side, and then also getting connected with longevity clinics and wellness providers on the demand side to give them access to these services that they otherwise will have to spend a ton of time trying to patch together themselves and not doing what they're really good at, which is taking care of people.
Gopi, it's music to my ears. I'm super passionate about health span and longevity, and it's a core investment thesis of mine. I think moving Australia to a place where it has genuine, proactive health options,
Yeah.
people can choose to invest in because they want to maximize their health and minimize any downside later on. I think
Yeah.
it's such a powerful solution. And being an aggregator of those providers or those services and making it super easy for both people and practitioners to access them is really cool. So,
It's a complex problem, it's beyond just sort of, one of the hardest things in healthcare is last mile delivery, right? So someone goes to a pathology clinic, how do you make sure that the results come back in a meaningful time? But then also, how do you present the results back in a way that's actually absorbable and you can compare and you can do longitudinal studies and, analysis as well. So I think, you know, solving the end-to-end problem both from access but also consumer experience, we think that's what's going to unlock the medicine 3.0 around the world. And that's what's going to make all of us more and more proactive, is that we get to see our results, we get to add other things in, we get to, do the test, we have autonomy, we get to understand it. Yeah, it's a big problem to solve.
we could take that in so many directions.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
let's just think about the people listening today, and if there were people out there that you would love to connect with, who are they, and how could you get how could they get involved?
Yeah, for us, it's just building relationships and networks in the healthcare space. So longevity providers, wellness clinics, you know, functional medicine providers, we just always want to talk and understand what the challenges they're facing, the products and services that they really want. Anyone in the healthcare space as well who is moving the needle with innovative solutions, I would love to have a chat to see how we can plug and play and how we can, enable what they're trying to do as well.
Mate, I would love my GP to be able to give you a call, right? And go, hey, I'm just a GP who really cares about their patients and would love to be able to recommend some stuff
Yeah.
to my patients who want to be proactive.
Yeah. And then, I want to be able to provide a suite of things rather than me wasting time trying to work out who provides what and where do they need to go, or pass on the problem to the individual, because, there is that inertia, right? Like there is this thing of like this friction and this barrier to get over, that if you can help people cut through that, it makes it much easier for them to look after themselves.
I tell you what, Gopi, I'm more than happy to facilitate a webinar or something for you with a whole bunch of interested practitioners from any area
Amazing.
of
Thank you.
practice. Yeah.
Very
So
kind,
if
Wayne.
people are interested in that, why don't they reach out and we'll see what we can put together.
Yes.
Gopi, really excited to hear what you're doing at OneMRI. I'm super excited to be on the journey as an investor with you. I love the way you guys work and the clarity of the plan and the clarity of the information you share back with us as a team of investors. It's on point. Thanks for sharing so many valuable lessons today. Let's switch and go to 7 very quick rapid fire questions.
Sounds
Gopi,
good.
coffee or tea?
Neither.
Neither. Okay, you
Neither.
better
Yeah.
explain. Please
Just
explain.
just water. I think for me it was like, this longevity piece has like been part of my life in many different ways. So I'm the kind of guy, like I wouldn't do something unless I can do it for a very long time. And so both one, coffee, it's like I didn't want to be dependent on it. And for tea, it's like I'm always rushing in the morning. I never have time. So I'm just like, just living off water and creatine usually these days. But yeah, it's just this, I guess I'm always trying to minimize the habits that's going to make me dependent on them.
Love it. Morning or night?
Morning.
Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Books or podcasts?
Podcast.
Do you prefer to work from home or the office?
Home.
Are you a gym or a cardio guy?
Gym.
And lastly, is it legacy or lifestyle?
Legacy.
I thought as much. Gopi, thanks for being on the pod. It's been really great chatting to you. For everyone listening, there'll be lots of information about how you can connect with Gopi and the team at OneMRI. Please reach out to them if you're a practitioner who has patients that would benefit from being proactive with their healthcare. Gopi, have a great day.
Amazing. Thank you, Wayne. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of 7 Questions. If you'd like to learn more about the founders, you can get a link to the full show notes in the description below. Have a great day. We look forward to you joining us on the next episode.